A warm welcome to all our participants today. Thank you for joining in, and I'm sure that you would find Thibaut's insights about having recently started their business in India interesting to hear. Thibaut, just to start things rolling, it would be great if you could introduce Floridienne Group, if you could talk about what your business interests are, what your footprint across the world is like, and also introduce yourself.
Thank you, Aditya. Good morning. Floridienne is a Belgian company listed on Euronext Brussels. Just to give one number, we are talking about 400 million of sales, roughly in total. And we've got diverse activities in three main businesses. The food specialty, and that's mainly in France and in Belgium, with the end market in those countries. The life science division, that I will talk more in detail afterwards, and the chemical division, which is more also in Europe, either in PVC stabilizers or also a recycling activity. With the life science division, which is actually the one which is the most global with activities all over the world, what we are trying to do in this division is to inspire ourselves by nature, and we are very focused on natural products. So we've got one company that is working in terms of biocontrol for pests in the agricultural field. And we've got another company which is working for extracting natural enzymes. And that's with this company that we opened up a subsidiary in India. So that's in a nutshell what the Floridienne Group is. And very diverse companies of various sizes located in a lot of different countries all around the world.
Great. And Thibaut, just a bit about yourself too.
Yeah, so myself, I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Floridienne. I joined Floridienne roughly 2 years ago, and it's been a lot of opportunity to understand various businesses and to go and visit our factories and our subsidiaries all over the world, so different parts in Europe, but also I had the chance to go to our Indian subsidiary last year, as we were fully busy with the launch of our activities there.
Great. And Thibaut, before we talk specifically about your India journey, it would be useful to hear from you if you could share some insights about the overseas investment philosophy of Floridienne. And I think it's important to discuss that first because doing business in an overseas country is never easy, is never simple, and it doesn't matter whether you're a large multi-billion-dollar conglomerate or if you're a mid-sized company. So the thought process at Floridienne about going international.
Yeah, so I think that if you want to go for growth, you need to go internationally, because you've got clearly markets that are very dynamic internationally. So Asia, India, China, Asia is clearly one of the most dynamic part of the world for the moment. And now if we look at our business, where we focus on certain niche, because of the size of those niche, actually going internationally makes a lot of sense. And thirdly, what's also important is that because all products are derived from nature, if you want to take as much advantage as possible from how rich the nature is, you will find a lot of diversity when going abroad. So, for example, we've got a subsidiary in Madagascar, because in Madagascar, on this beautiful island, you can find the best vanilla in the world, and that's what we do there. And so for natural enzyme, India is a key country in terms of raw materials, and that was a key factor for us to decide to launch a subsidiary in India. So basically, that's the thought process, a financial one. Where can you find growth? The niche, if you are in a niche, you want to exploit this niche and those opportunities in as many markets as possible. And thirdly, if you want to take advantage of nature, you have to go to some countries where nature is really extremely diverse, extremely rich. And that's the reason why we are present in certain countries where you can find things that you find in not any other country in the world. So I spoke about Madagascar, I spoke about India. We also have a subsidiary in Papua New Guinea. So nature is extremely diverse, extremely rich there, and we are trying to take just a small part of this richness.
Yep. And Thibaut, a little bit more specifically about the investment in India. How did you go about, deciding the timing for the investment? Just a bit of background on that.
Yeah. So what was key for this investment was clearly the raw materials that we can source there. And then it was clear when you look at India, how big the country is, well located in Asia to serve a key market. When you look at the talent pool that you've got in India, it was clear that we don't want to go there just for the raw material. We also want to have a production side there. And so that's how it started and why we decided to invest in India. And now what was key, once this decision had been taken, what was key was to find the right partners there to be able to develop this joint venture.
Yeah. So Thibaut, you spoke about the growth and about the potential of the market, and it's interesting. I was talking the other day to the CFO, Indian CFO of a management consulting firm, and he used to live in the UK in let's say 2005 and around. And what he was telling me is that how he used to read in the papers, in the news about the potential of the Indian economy, the growth, and so on. And he decided one fine day to quit his job, come to India, and set up the Indian subsidiary of an American management consulting firm. And within a few years, he realized that yes, there is growth. Yes, the market is attractive, but success is not given, right? There are enough companies who are struggling to convert that growth into profitability, and that's always a challenge. Any country, any overseas country that you choose to invest in. So, did you, at your end, have any business objectives or financial metrics which you had in mind while starting this business here in India?
Yeah, I mean, what was key was secure enough good quality raw material supplies. So that was clearly key. And then to build up a local production site, and to do that, to transform this into a success, given the cultural differences. I mean, the geographical distance between where we are in Europe and the Indian market. It was clear that a subsidiary that would be 100% owned by us with employees, that would not suffice. And that what we needed there was a local partner to invest with us, to have skin in the game and a certain percentage of the shares, that this was key to transform this into a success. So clearly, once the objective was clear in terms of what we wanted to achieve, the journey to get there, we understood that what was key was to find the right partner. So the right person to work on it with us, and also to have the right support in terms of firms that we can work with that will help us to transform this into a success. But to your point, and as you said, it's clearly not a given that this will be a success. And even if the pool of talent is extremely big in India. When you look at, how many people, the size of the country, how many people live there, how the level of education that you've got there. Clearly opportunities are there, but to transform this into a success and to make it real, what was key was to find the right partner.
Yeah, sure. And Thibaut, you spoke about the size of the country, and India is a fairly large country. It's culturally very diverse. Sometimes people, when I talk to overseas investors, they find it very surprising that India has 22 official languages, right? And all of this diversity can translate into complexity from a cultural perspective. A bit to hear from you about the cultural challenges or differences which you faced doing business here in India, setting up, and even after that.
Yeah. So clearly, you know, there are cultural differences, and that's a challenge. And it's not just cultural; it's a different country, different language, as you pointed out, and rules are different, regulations are different. So that's clearly a challenge. Now, I mean, and that's true in all countries.
Yeah.
Now, to me, the big difference with India, when I compare it to other countries where we operate, is the amount of talent that you can find in India. We've got some countries where we operate where the main challenge is to find someone who's got the qualification. And if you find one person who's got the qualification, you're lucky, and you'd better hire him. In India, that's not true. You've got a lot of people having the right qualification, and that's pretty easy to find. When I was in India last year, and that we were, I was there just for a week, and we were working on certain things in terms of, setting up the accounting system and so on. I was quite surprised and amazed by how quickly you could get support. If we had some questions, you could get a consultant there, in the next hours. I mean, in Europe, if you need someone, yeah, you call and then you make an appointment, and if you're lucky, you're able to get this appointment for the same week. And most of the time, it's going to be the week after or so. So it's just to illustrate the fact that in India, the pool of talent is huge. And yeah, there are a lot of very well-educated people, and that's really not difficult to find people with very good qualification, with a high level of education, with a lot of talent. The challenge is then, because there are so much people with qualification, is to find the right person where you see that there is a fit, that you can build trust. And here we are talking about, setting up a joint venture. So it takes time. So we want to build trust and to have long-term plan. So someone you can trust, someone we can work with over the coming years. So that's really the challenge. And clearly, specificities of India, cultural differences, all those things are challenges. It makes it an interesting journey. But if you're working with the right partner to set up this joint venture, and you've got the support of the right companies to help you navigate through that, it goes well. I mean, it goes. I would not say smoothly, but it goes easier. It's easier, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you spoke about choosing a joint venture partner, and I think it's important for every organization to decide what shape and form would they like their business to take when they go overseas. I mean, we see examples of companies who start off with, say, a liaison office with one or two employees coming in from the headquarters to understand the market, to spend time, to assist business operations of the headquarters, and so on, and then ultimately over the years set up a wholly owned subsidiary. At the same time, you also see examples of companies choosing a more faster route, say 100% acquisition and taking over a running business, or probably as you spoke about a joint venture, finding the right partner with the business experience and the expertise. So, what was the thought process at Floridienne about entering the market? Did you evaluate all the routes, which I'm sure you did? But what something on your experience on that front?
Yeah. So it's been a journey with some trial and error. As you said, if you want to go quickly, maybe it goes quicker if you find an existing company and you buy some shares in it and you keep them as partner, still involved in the business. But if you're starting with an existing company, it could go quicker. This was our first option. That's what we started in the beginning. That's what we tried in the beginning. but unfortunately it did not work out. So for this reason, we had to start again. The good thing is that we identified the right partner, the person we wanted to work with, and then we decided to start from scratch. Takes a bit more time, but clearly here it was the right decision to get where we wanted. Having the right subsidiary, the right partner, the right production footprint, and so on, and doing it properly 100%. So as a summary, clearly there are different possibilities. There, from our perspective, our experience was a bit trial and error. Our first trial was taking a share in an existing company. The advantage, it goes quicker. Now it didn't work out for several reasons, and we went on for route 2, which is find the right partner and build up the company with him.
Right. And Thibaut, getting into a partnership is a long-term partnership can be a complicated process because you need to find someone who has the same values, the same vision of doing business. So how did you go around on those aspects? Did you face any hiccups, any kind of issues? What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been lucky there. It was not the first time lucky, but second time, I think second time lucky, because I'm clearly convinced, and everything I've seen over the past 2 years indicates that we found the right partner, someone we can trust, someone who's got the flexibility in terms of competencies to build up a business from scratch and to develop it to something bigger with our support and our experience in this field. So I'd like to tell you that we've done a very mathematical, precise, or psychological analysis to find, to have a guarantee that we found the right partner. I strongly believe that we found the right partner, but I think that there is some luck there. And as I said, it was a bit of trial and error. Did not work out the first time, but I think that the second time is the right one. I'm pretty convinced about it. And everything I've seen over the past 2 years clearly indicates that.
Yeah, one needs patience, doesn't
it? Patience and luck. So those are the key words, I would say.
Right. Thibaut, when you talk about India, there's so much that people talk about ease of doing business. As per the latest ease of doing business rankings in the world, India is at 63, number 63, and if you think that that's not very impressive, what you have to keep in mind is that over the last 5 or 6 years, India has climbed up 79 places in the global ranking. So clearly the government has done a lot to make India a more easier place to do business in, a more friendly place. Even the government has started a national investment promotion and facilitation agency called Invest India, to play a role in this. So, but at the end of the day, the government can only do so much. So, it would be interesting to have your experiences compared to your experience in other markets and other geographies from the perspective of doing business.
Yeah. You said, the ease of doing business. I think it depends only partly of what the government does. And then you've got a lot of other things. And one of the key things is people you're working with. Yeah. So I think that's one part of the answer, is that actually government can do something and should do something, and that's very important, but it will only determine a percentage of the ease of doing business in the country, and it depends on a lot of other factors. And then I also think that it's always just a question of perspective. What you're familiar with in a country, what you are used with, at the end of the day, after a while, you do not realize anymore, that there is a real administrative burden. And so you might have a tendency to consider that in your own country things are easier than in other countries. Actually, it's not true. It's just that you've been in this country for long, or you've been operating in this country for a longer time, and for this reason you're familiar with that, and it seems easy. It actually, from an external person, it's not easy at all. It's just you've been used for that. Yeah, my experience is that, and that's true in all countries. I mean, you know, for an entrepreneur, you know, when you're trying to set up a company, it's always, I mean, your impression is that always the amount of red tape is too much. And in India, it's true in Europe, it's true everywhere. And the more the government can work on reducing it, and of course, it's important to have rules and to have you know, checks and balances and to have a certain oversight. But the more the government can do to reduce, you know, the administrative burden, the better it is. So my experience in India is that there are, I mean, you know, if we look at the investment we've done, it took us much longer than anticipated. And the administrative process explains part of it, but it's not the most important factor that explains the fact that it took longer. The other things is clearly COVID that we could not anticipate. And then, okay, the trial and errors process to find the right partners. So a lot of things that have nothing to do with the government. So I certainly don't want to blame him here. But a lot of things that made it a bit more complex than anticipated in the first place. But so to sum up, the more the government can do to help businesses, to support them with some subsidy when they are making significant investments, the more they can do to simplify processes, the better it is. But the experience from foreign investor is that at the end of the day, how complex the process is, only part of it will depend on the government.
Yeah.
And I might sound as a broken record, but at the end of the day, the process will be much easier if you found the right partner internally and externally. And I'm pretty confident that we are there now.
Yeah, and you know, you were talking about regulations, and from an Indian perspective, there have been reforms on the banking front, on the financial front. There have been significant liberalizations over the years. So, you know, today, if you're an overseas investor and you would like to make an equity investment in India, apart from, say, a handful of restricted or sensitive sectors, you don't need any government approvals to go ahead. The process is fairly streamlined and, you know, efficient. Or let's say that you know, you're an overseas investor, you have a subsidiary in India, you would like to extend a loan to the Indian subsidiary, something in India that we call external commercial borrowing. That is possible, and this ECB can even be from an overseas lender, not necessarily from the parent. There are avenues to raise financing locally in Indian rupees, in the local market, for working capital, for long-term debt. We have a fairly active and diverse pool of banks in the local market, the domestic banks, multinational banks. So getting the financial model right is also an important part of you know, doing business, of starting off. So what was your experience of you know, setting up your financial model, and what was the thought process at your end?
Yeah. You know, as this company, we were starting from scratch. We needed to infuse in it sufficient capital, and that was the first thing. Several capital increase rounds to make sure that that our subsidiary had sufficient funds to operate and was solid and robust in terms of, you know, if you look at the ratio perspective in terms of own funds versus what you could borrow. So that was the first step. Own capital that we did put in this company together with our local partner. Second step was to get some financing from the bank. We made a significant capex investment there, and so we wanted part of it to be financed locally. And so we received the support of our partnering bank there, and I would say that they were because everything you said is something which is, for a foreign investor who has businesses in several countries around the world. I mean, personally, I'm not familiar with all the rules that you said or all the possibilities that you said.
Yeah.
So there it was clearly important to work with a bank that could help us navigate through that. And so the first layer of financing was share capital. The second one was loan from the bank for the working capital and for the capex. And the third one, and here it's still too early in the process to say that it works, because we are still in the process of trying to get it, was to receive some grants, because the investment that we are doing in India is clearly an important investment for the local communities and for the agricultural sector. And so normally it should be eligible for certain grants. So if we've got those three pillars, sufficient funds from the shareholders, they take their responsibility and then make sure that from a financial perspective, your subsidiary is well financed. So that's the first thing, share capital. The second thing was with the help of our banking partner to get the loans, working capital and capex. And the third thing, and I hope that we will get that, and the government will play its role supporting businesses, that we should be eligible for certain subsidies. Too early to say that we've not received the money yet, but according to the rules, we are eligible. So normally we should receive this money. And so those are the three key financing lines for our investment in India.
Yeah, no, as you said, the government is trying to do a lot of things to attract investors to India, to make India more investor friendly, and specific subsidies for a specific type of industries are available. It doesn't matter whether you're a domestic firm or a multinational firm. There are incentive schemes that the government has launched in the recent past, depends on the sector that you're investing in. And also from a financing perspective, to make your exports more efficient, the government also provides subsidies on export financing. So there are a whole lot of options which are available, and it is of course incumbent on you to spend time with the right financial partner to understand what is the range of options available and how best you can kind of efficiently utilize each one of them.
No, you're right. In terms of subsidies, when I look at the subsidies where we should be eligible, India is very competitive, and we see that the government clearly wants to, to help the kind of investments that we are doing, because it has a clear positive impact on the agricultural sector and on the life of thousands of people working from agriculture. So there, if we look at the subsidy part, it is very competitive compared to other countries. Now, I'm still a bit prudent about it, because I haven't, we should be eligible for that, but we've not received this money yet. So I prefer to be a bit prudent.
Sure. Thibaut, let's talk about, we spoke about culture in terms of countries and languages, but the other thing that is also important is corporate culture, and there are all kind of organizations, some which prefer centralization, some which prefer ceding decision making for many matters to local teams. So what kind of management philosophy or corporate culture do you share at Floridienne, and how do you think that has affected your business?
Yeah, so Floridienne is a bit particular in the sense that we have a lot of SMEs in our group, with people who are responsible for their for the business they are heading, and they have a lot of freedom to operate. So we want them to act as entrepreneur, to manage those companies as if they were the owner of these companies. For several businesses, as the one we are setting up in India, our local partner has also shares of the company. So that's the philosophy. We trust people. They receive a lot of responsibility. They act as entrepreneur and as owner of the business that they are in charge of. And if you look at India, it's a very good example because clearly here it's a local partner who is the manager of the business, who is also a shareholder, and where, I mean, we do not have someone from the head office being there, sitting in India next to him and controlling everything he's doing. So we trust him, and that's in that way that we want to grow this business together.
Yeah, it's actually interesting how different organizations have different philosophy on this. I remember this gentleman who was the CFO of a multinational firm in India, subsidiary, and their parent was acquired by a Canadian listed firm. Okay, and as all acquisitions, as all changes can bring about different styles of working, and for this gentleman, the way he used to run his business was there was a lot of paper involved, a lot of manual processes, and when the new owners came in, they were very keen that everything is digital, everything is highly centralized. So they had certain specific requirements, such as all hedging transactions would be done by the overseas treasury, the group treasury manager. And it was simple for us to set it up because we had an online system. They could, in spite of the time differences, they could log in at a certain point, do everything digitally. They had requirements such as that every transaction, every debit to the local Indian account would be signed by two authorized signatories, one in India and one in overseas at the group headquarters. And we were able to do that with the kind of technology initiatives and solutions which we were able to provide. It's interesting to hear your story as well, where there is more decentralization, where there is more independent decision making at the local site.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the philosophy. So that's what we are doing in all our subsidiaries. In certain subsidiaries, we have no choice because, as you said, the technology is not there to allow for a day-to-day control of everything they are doing. In India, we've got the advantage that actually, we could have something extremely integrated from an IT point of view with a view, real-time view on everything they would be doing, on everything they would be processing. And that's good because it allows us to put some control in place. Now, now it's not our philosophy, but we're working with a certain level of control, with certain thresholds that are applied for approvals of certain delegation of authorities that are in place. So technology would allow us to do that level of control that you were speaking about. It's not our philosophy, so we are not putting that in place. We are working with delegation of authorities, certain thresholds being applied. But in other countries, what you were talking about would simply not be an option because the technology is not there. So that's a key difference, I would say.
Thibaut, as we draw towards the end of the conversation, any specific challenges that you face that you look back upon now, things which went differently from how you anticipated that you would like to share with the participants?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it took much longer than anticipated. So it's been a long process. COVID did not help, trial and error. I think that it's important. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, luck and patience, I would say those are the two keywords. And I'd like to be able to write a textbook and to say, if you do that, you'll be fine. But actually, I think that it's more luck and patience.
Sure. And Thibaut, any advice that you would like to share with CFOs on the call today who are looking at making an investment in India? Or how would you have done things differently today with the experience that you have of already having made this investment?
Yeah. So the advice I would give is find the right partner internally and externally. So, the external firm you're going to work with to help you navigate through such a big country and such a different culture, it's key for the success. Now, how would have we done things differently? You know, if we had known everything we know today, you know, I think at the end of the day, it's a journey, and what you are doing help you to get where you are. And you cannot really say, okay, I should not have done that. And so in a trial and error, you know, the first mistake you did actually helped us to find the right partner for second trial. So of course, if I had known, I prefer to do first trial with the right partner immediately. But actually it is trial and error, and the first failure, that's what was key to identify and to find the right person to work with. So you cannot really have the one without the other, you know. I mean, trial and error, you cannot just keep the trial and remove the errors. It's a journey, and you have to do both. You know, you'll experience both.
Sure. Thibaut, let's open the line to get some questions in from the participants. I see. Yeah, this is an interesting one. It says you spoke about luck and patience. Is it different from other countries, or is it just the same with your experience in other investments across the world?
I think that you know, I mean, there are cultural differences, and there is the distance. And so when you have something you are more familiar with, so I mean, you know, our head office is based in Belgium. Clearly, if we are operating in neighboring countries from Belgium, you know, the distance is much lower and the cultural differences are smaller. So you know, if you need to fix something, I mean, you take your car and the same day you can be on the premises and you can act. I mean, clearly in India, there is a distance, and the distance means that things take more time. And cultural differences is the same thing, you know. If when you are operating with someone who, you know, has exactly the same cultural background as yours, and where the rules are mostly the same as in your own countries, I mean, things go quicker. It doesn't mean that it's better or that it's easier. It's just those are the rules and the way of working you are much more used to. So to answer to the question, I would say that, you know, when cultural differences and geographical distance is smaller, I mean, you know, luck and patience can be reduced or plays a lower role. As with the distance increasing and the cultural differences becoming more important, luck and patience plays a bigger role, I would say.
Okay, I see another question for you. It is on the challenges that you faced on the policy and compliance front, especially for local government authorities while you were actually setting up the manufacturing facility.
Yeah. Actually, it's something where I believe it's the right thing to have the right partners, because it's something that we handed over. I mean, handed over is maybe too strong a word, but where we rely on, you know, Altios to help us navigate through what we have to do, what is compulsory, and where our local partner, who is more familiar with, you know, the rules and what has to be followed, they are taking care of that. So it's not transparent to us because we understand that these processes take time, but clearly the people who have been in the, you know, on the front seat to work on these topics are our partner, our external partner, Altios, and our internal partner responsible for our subsidiary there.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do it all yourself, can you? One has to trust, one has to collaborate, right? So.
No, indeed. I mean, you know, and I don't think that I would be the best person to do that. Clearly, there are a better person to handle this, who are more knowledgeable about those things. So And I know I'm repeating myself, but if you find the right partner, that is what's key. Trust them and just learn to work with them as efficiently as possible, build a close relationship, and that will go on. But clearly, I'm not the right person to, to speak about all the little details of the rules that we had to comply with. But what I made sure is that we had the right persons to look after that kind of thing.
Yeah. Thibaut, I see the question here. You spoke about finding the right support, the right partner. Any tips that you can provide in how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think that's what's important is to build a personal relationship. What's positive is that now with those tools like WebEx or those technology, even if we are very far, we can still have have a good contact, face-to-face contact. Now, I think that going on site, meeting those people, meeting our local partners, spending time there, not just for work, but also for other things, meeting our key external advisors, I think that's key, because at the end of the day, everything becomes more easier when you've taken the time beforehand to build a personal relationship with those people.
Yeah, and while technology has helped, definitely COVID has complicated that a bit, hasn't it? The experience of meeting someone, of shaking hands, and so on, has it not?
Yeah, indeed. But what's good is that I could get to India before the COVID wave, so I had the chance to spend time with our partner there before COVID. And once you've done that beforehand, all the conversations when they are remote, it becomes easier. Because you've built up that relationship with this person.
Sure. Thibaut, I see another one for you. So the question to you is that if Floridienne did not need raw materials from India, would you have still evaluated coming to India, making an investment?
India is a big market. If you look at the demand, if you look at the growth potential, and has a lot of talent. So clearly it makes sense to have investments in India. Now for the particular investments so clearly India is on the radar of Floridienne for investments. The specific investment we've made was guided first because of the availability of raw material there. So there was that thing that made it clear that it was India and not another country. But if you leave that aside, clearly India has the key elements in terms of attractiveness to attract businesses. You've got the market and you've got a pool of talent. So if you combine those two, it's clearly a key market to be there and to have subsidiaries, not only to sell your products, but also to manufacture them.
Sure. Thibaut, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, for sharing your experience, your insights about your India journey. I'm sure the participants have found it very useful.